My name is Vivian, a 30-year-old dentist with my own little clinic in the heart of the city. It's a cozy place, filled with the hum of dental equipment and the occasional laughter of my patients. I've always been ambitious, driven by a passion for my profession and the satisfaction of helping others. But when I step out of my clinic, I step into a completely different world, my life with Tom. Tom is my husband, an office clerk in a nondescript building downtown. He's the kind of man who finds comfort in routine, in the predictable ebb and flow of paperwork and office small talk. We met during our college years, an unlikely pair, the aspiring dentist and the laid-back literature major. Our love story wasn't one of instant fireworks, but rather a slow burn, a gentle warmth that grew over shared coffees and late-night study sessions. Our life together was simple, yet fulfilling. We lived in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city, decorated with mismatched furniture and framed photos of our travels. Tom had always been content with our modest lifestyle, never one to chase after luxury or extravagance. But things began to shift subtly, almost imperceptibly, as my career took off and his stagnated. One evening, after a long day at the clinic, I found Tom sitting on our old sofa, the one with the frayed edges and the stubborn coffee stain. The TV was on, but he wasn't watching. He seemed lost in thought, a rare furrow creasing his normally smooth forehead. "Hey," I greeted, dropping my bag and sinking next to him. "Tough day." He glanced at me, forcing a smile. "Just the usual. How was the clinic?" "Busy as ever. Mrs. Jenkins came in for her checkup." "You know, she asked about you again," I said, trying to lighten the mood. Tom chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's Mrs. Jenkins for you. Always keeping tabs on us." There was a pause, a silence that stretched uncomfortably. I nudged him gently. "What's on your mind, Tom?" He sighed, turning off the TV. "It's just, do you ever think about how different our worlds are? Your clinic, your patients, and me, just sorting files and answering phones." I studied his face, the lines of worry that seemed out of place. "Our worlds might be different, Tom, but they're not incompatible. I love my job, and I love you. That's all that matters." He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Vivian, but sometimes, I feel like I'm not contributing enough. You're out there, making good money, building a career, and I'm just, I don't know, coasting along." I took his hand in mine, squeezing it reassuringly. "Tom, you contribute in so many ways. You're the one who makes this house a home. You're the one I come back to after a hectic day, the one who listens to my endless rants about molars and crowns. Your job doesn't define your worth in our relationship or in life." He smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in it. "You always know what to say, Vivian. I just wish I could be more successful, I guess. For you, for us. Success isn't just about money or titles, Tom. It's about being happy, being kind, being there for each other. And you excel at all those things," I said, hoping my words would ease his burden. Life trudged on in its usual rhythm until one day, something extraordinary happened. I remember staring at the pregnancy test, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and disbelief. I was going to be a mom. I couldn't wait to share the news with Tom. That evening, as Tom walked through the door, I could barely contain my excitement. "Tom, guess what?" I blurted out, the moment he stepped in. He raised an eyebrow, hanging his coat. "What? Did Mrs. Jenkins finally admit she has a crush on me?" I laughed, shaking my head. "No, something even better. We're going to have a baby." Tom's eyes widened, and for a moment, he was speechless. Then, a huge grin spread across his face. "Seriously? We're going to be parents?" "Yes." I nodded eagerly, watching his reaction. He wrapped me in a hug, lifting me off the ground. "This is amazing, Vivian. I can't believe it. We're going to have a little one running around." I hugged him back, feeling a surge of joy. "I know. Can you believe it? You're going to be a dad." He set me down, his face suddenly serious. "But wait, what about your work? The clinic? I shrugged. I'll take maternity leave. The clinic will manage. Tom frowned, but that's a long break, Vivian. What about the money? We've got savings, and your salary. We'll be fine, I assured him, though a flicker of worry crossed my mind. Yeah, but it's not the same as your income. We might have to cut back on some stuff, he said, his excitement dimming slightly. I touched his arm. Tom, we'll make it work. This is our baby. It's worth every sacrifice. He nodded slowly. You're right. It's just a lot to take in. But I'm happy, Vivian. Really happy. We spent the evening talking about baby names, nursery themes, and all the things we wanted to teach our child. It was a beautiful bubble of happiness, untainted by the challenges that lay ahead. For a moment, all worries about finances and the future seemed insignificant compared to the life growing inside me. As my belly grew, so did the tension between Tom and me. It was like walking on eggshells in our own home. Tom's mood swings were becoming more frequent, and our conversations, once filled with excitement about our future, were now strained and brief. One evening, I found Tom sitting at the kitchen table, bills spread out in front of him, his forehead creased in worry. What's up? I asked, trying to sound casual as I set down a cup of tea for him. He glanced up, his expression tired. Just looking at our finances. This baby is going to be expensive, Vivian. I took a seat beside him. We knew that, Tom, but we'll manage. We always do. He shook his head. It's not just the baby. It's everything. Your maternity leave, the clinic, our savings. I reached out to touch his hand, but he pulled away. Tom, talk to me. What's really bothering you? It's just, he sighed heavily. I feel useless, Vivian. You're there, doing everything, and what am I doing? Just adding more stress. Hey, you are not useless, I said firmly. You're going to be a father. That's something. He scoffed, a father who can't even provide properly for his family. Some role model I'll be. His words stung, but I tried to keep my voice even. Tom, we're in this together. You're not alone in this. Feels like it, though, he muttered, standing up abruptly. I need some air. I watched him grab his coat and head out the door, feeling a mix of frustration and worry. Our talks were turning into one-sided conversations, and I felt helpless watching him pull away. The days turned into weeks, and Tom started coming home late, reeking of alcohol. One night, I confronted him as he stumbled through the door. Where have you been? It's past midnight. He shrugged off his coat, avoiding my gaze. Out with the guys. Needed to blow off some steam. At a bar? Really, Tom? I couldn't hide my disappointment. What's it to you? I'm not allowed to have some fun, he retorted, his voice rising. It's not about having fun. It's about being responsible. We have a baby on the way, for God's sake. He laughed bitterly. Oh, I'm well aware. How could I forget with you constantly reminding me? I felt a pang of hurt. That's not fair, Tom. I'm worried about you, about us. He shook his head. Save it, Vivian. I don't need a lecture. The tension in our home had become a constant companion, but nothing prepared me for the night when it all came crashing down. I was 7 months pregnant, feeling heavy and tired, longing for a quiet evening. That's when I heard the front door burst open and a raucous laughter fill our once peaceful home. Stunned, I walked into the living room to find Tom, drunk, surrounded by his buddies, all of them carrying the stench of alcohol and cigarettes. Empty beer cans were already littering the floor. What the hell, Tom? I blurted out, my voice shaking with anger and shock. Tom, swaying slightly, grinned at me. Hey, Vivian, we're just having some fun. Lighten up. This is our home, not a bar. Look at this mess. I gestured around, feeling my heart race. One of Tom's friends, a loud guy named Rick, slurred, Come on, lady, let the man have some fun. You're always keeping him on a tight leash. I felt a flash of anger. Excuse me? This is my house too. I don't need this, especially not now. Tom stumbled over to me, trying to put an arm around my shoulder. Vivian, don't be like that. We're just blowing off steam. Blowing off steam? You call this blowing off steam? I pushed his arm away, feeling a mix of disgust and disbelief. Yeah, what's your problem, Vivian? I work hard, I deserve to relax, Tom shot back, his words slurred. You're going to be a father, Tom. Is this the example you want to set? I was almost shouting now, my patience fraying. Tom's face hardened. I don't need a lecture from you, Vivian. I know what I'm doing. No, you clearly don't. I countered, my voice trembling. His friends, sensing the tension, started to shuffle awkwardly. Maybe we should go, man, one of them muttered. No, stay. Have fun. Seems like that's all that matters to you. I said bitterly, turning away from Tom. I retreated to our bedroom, closing the door behind me. The sounds of their laughter and chatter pierced through the walls, a stark contrast to the tears that started to roll down my cheeks. I felt alone, scared, and utterly helpless. My husband, the man who once promised to stand by me, was now a stranger, choosing booze and buddies over our family. The next morning, I woke up to find the house silent but trashed. Tom was sprawled on the couch, snoring, surrounded by the remnants of last night's party. As I started to clean up, trying to hold back my tears, Tom woke up. Vivian, he began, rubbing his eyes. Save it, Tom. I don't want to hear any excuses. Look at this mess. Look at what you've become, I said quietly, my voice laced with sadness. He tried to stand up, staggering slightly. I'm sorry, Vivian. I didn't mean. You didn't mean what? To scare me? To disrespect our home? To forget that we're about to have a baby? I interrupted him, my frustration boiling over. The day our son was born was a whirlwind of emotions. I was in the hospital, enduring the pains of labor, while Tom paced nervously in the room. Despite the chaos, I remember feeling a sense of anticipation, knowing that our lives were about to change forever. In between the intense bouts of pain, I caught Tom's eye. You're doing great, Vivian, he said, trying to sound confident, but I could hear the worry in his voice. I managed a weak smile, gripping his hand tightly. Just stay with me, Tom. Then, after hours that seemed like an eternity, our son was born. I was exhausted, but the moment I heard his first cry, a wave of relief and joy washed over me. I looked up at Tom, expecting to share this overwhelming moment, but he was distracted, sending a text message. Tom, our son. I said, a mix of happiness and disappointment in my voice. Yeah, he's great, Vivian. Just letting the guys know, he replied, not meeting my eyes. I felt a pang of sadness, realizing that this moment, so precious to me, was just another event for Tom to report to his friends. Back at home, things didn't get any better. Tom's enthusiasm for our son was fleeting, and his frequent absences left me feeling increasingly alone. One evening, when he returned home late again, I confronted him. Where have you been, Tom? Do you even care about your family? He shrugged off his coat, avoiding my gaze. Needed a break, Vivian. It's tough for me too, you know. Tough for you? I was astounded. I'm here all day with our son, and you're out taking breaks. I didn't sign up for this constant pressure, Vivian. You've changed. You're always so stressed, he retorted. Changed? I'm a mother now, Tom. What's your excuse? I shot back, my frustration boiling over. He didn't respond, just walked away, leaving me standing there, holding our crying son. Then, one morning, I received a phone call that confirmed my worst fears. It was from Tom's employer, informing me that Tom had been fired for showing up to work drunk. I was stunned, not just by the fact that he had lost his job, but that he had kept it from me. One evening, I couldn't hold back any longer. Tom, we need to talk, I said, my voice firm as I walked into the living room where he was sprawled on the couch. He glanced up, uninterested. About what? About you, us, this situation. You've been out of work for weeks now, and you're not even looking for a job. We can't go on like this, I said, frustration building inside me. Tom took a sip of his beer. So what? I lost my job. Big deal. I'll find something eventually. Eventually? Tom, we have a baby to take care of, bills to pay. You need to start taking this seriously, I pressed, trying to get through to him. He shrugged. Why don't you go back to work then? You make good money. I took a deep breath. That's exactly what I'm planning to do. But I need you to step up. You could stay home, look after our son. Tom sat up, his expression turning from disinterest to disbelief. What? Me, a house husband? No way. My friends would never let me live that down. Seriously? You're worried about what your friends might think? What about what's best for our family? I couldn't hide my disbelief. Look, Vivian, I'm a man, okay? Men don't just sit around at home changing diapers and feeding babies, he retorted, his tone defiant. I felt my temper rising. Being a man is about taking responsibility, Tom. It's about doing what's needed for your family, not about fitting into some outdated stereotype. Tom laughed mockingly. Oh, so now you're going to lecture me about being a man? You have no idea. This isn't about lecturing, Tom. It's about reality. We're in trouble here, and you're just escaping into your little world where everything's fine, I said, my voice shaking with anger. He stood up, facing me. I don't need to justify myself to you, Vivian. I'm not going to be some stay-at-home dad while you go off and play the hero. That's not who I am. The conversation escalated quickly, our voices raised, words thrown like daggers. It ended with Tom storming out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I was left standing there, feeling a mixture of anger, disappointment, and a deep, growing sense of despair. I returned home one evening to find Tom slumped in his usual spot on the couch, a bottle in hand. His eyes were unfocused, his demeanor that of a man defeated by his own choices. Tom, this has to stop, I said firmly, standing in the doorway, grocery bag still in hand. You're destroying yourself, and you're hurting us in the process. He glanced at me, a sneer forming on his lips. Oh, here comes the perfect wife to lecture me again. What's it this time, Vivian? It's not a lecture. It's the truth. Look at yourself, Tom. Look at what you're doing to our family, I replied, my voice laced with frustration. He let out a bitter laugh. Family? You mean you and the kid? I'm just the extra baggage, right? You're not baggage, Tom. You're my husband, the father of our child. But you need to own up to your responsibilities, I shot back, my patience wearing thin. Tom stood up abruptly, his stance unsteady. Responsibilities? Like what? Being the man you want me to be? I'm sick of your expectations, Vivian. This isn't about my expectations. It's about doing what's right for your family. I exclaimed, feeling my anger rise. He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. You always think you're so right, don't you? Always playing the victim. I held my ground, despite the fear creeping in. I'm not playing the victim, Tom. I'm trying to save our family. In a flash, his hand struck my face, a sharp pain radiating across my cheek. I stumbled back, shock and fear overwhelming me. You hit me. I whispered, my hand instinctively going to my stinging cheek. Yeah, I hit you. What are you gonna do about it? He sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Trembling, I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police, Tom. I won't let you hurt me or our son. His expression changed from anger to panic. No, Vivian, wait. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But I was already dialing. It's too late for sorry, Tom. You crossed a line. As the police arrived and handcuffed Tom, he kept repeating his apologies, begging me to drop the charges. But I stood firm, watching as they led him away. The man who had once been my partner, my confidant, was now a stranger, his actions unforgivable. 2 years had passed since the night I called the police on Tom. Our lives had diverged onto completely different paths. I was now a single mother, juggling my career and my son, while Tom, well, I hardly knew anything about his life anymore. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered, and a familiar voice came through the line. Vivian, it's me, Tom. His voice sounded rough, weary. What do you want, Tom? I asked, my guard immediately up. I need to see you, Vivian. Can we meet? There was a pleading tone in his voice, one I hadn't heard before. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him in a public place, a small cafe downtown. When I saw him, I barely recognized him. The man who sat across from me was a shadow of the Tom I once knew. His eyes were tired, his face unshaven, and he seemed to have aged far beyond his years. Vivian, I'm sorry, he started, his voice faltering. For everything. I looked at him, feeling a mix of pity and resentment. Your apologies won't change the past, Tom. I know. I've messed up, big time. But I've been sober for 6 months now. I'm trying to turn my life around, he said, looking down at his hands. I sighed, that's good to hear, Tom. But why tell me? Why now? He hesitated before speaking. I've been fired from my last job because of my drinking. I've hit rock bottom, Vivian. I have nothing left. I was hoping, maybe you could help me. Lend me some money. I felt a pang in my heart, but my resolve was firm. I can't do that, Tom. You need to figure this out on your own. Please, Vivian, I'm begging you. I have nowhere else to turn, he pleaded, desperation in his eyes. I shook my head. No, Tom. Helping you financially is not the solution. You need to take responsibility for your life. I have our son to think about. He looked defeated, his shoulders slumping. I understand. I just wanted to try. We parted ways, and as I walked away, I felt a sense of closure. It was a bittersweet feeling, knowing that the man I once loved was now a stranger, but also a sense of relief that I had moved on, building a life for myself and my son.